Welcome to Colorful Conversations with Katie, from exploring the latest design trends to uncovering strategies for building successful ventures. We are going to dive deeper into the colorful world where aesthetics meet profitability. Whether you're a budding designer or a savvy entrepreneur, this webcast is your go-to source for inspiration, insights, and hopefully a dash of lively conversation. Today, joining me is our guest, Diana Rushton. She has been with our firm for over a year now, but been in the creative space for 15 years. And we're so excited to welcome her to the webcast as we begin discussing NeoCon 2023 and what we learned. Welcome aboard.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was so fun. And we had I think we had a great time at NeoCon. It was plenty of lessons learned, great discoveries, all sorts of things. What jumped out to you?
I would say probably just the magnitude of commercial space that was very office heavy. I didn't realize that in that commercial space, that was the focus, because what we do is so wide in how we help our clients. And But to see it was very meticulous about office and how they had put a lot of thought into making it easy and how to coexist and with remote work and in-person work, and how they really hybrided that together, I thought was great. But I don't know, I wasn't expecting it to be so office focused just because of what we do. It was very interesting.
I totally agree. And I think one of the biggest takeaways for those of you that have gone to NeoCon in the past is the top 2 floors used to be outdoor furniture. And that outdoor furniture has been relocated to a specific once-a-year event in Atlanta that's coming up in the next month. And so if you go to the top, well, you can't even really get to the top 2 floors. They're just non-existent. That being said, there are a few other outdoor furniture stores that do have permanent showrooms there, but it's meager, I think, at best, compared to what was there, as they just get their own mart out of Atlanta. So that was, I think, a huge surprise for us, expecting to go there and have that as an option potentially, and realizing that commercial outdoor furniture has moved in a very permanent way, and don't expect to see it, at least for the foreseeable future, back in Chicago. A couple of other thoughts that we had walking away. One term that resonated with both of us was the alone together. There were 3 key points that we wanted to share with you, but the first one was alone together. And it's very interesting, as people come back to work, we want to be together, but boy, we've sure gotten used to being alone as well. Do you want to kind of expound on that, Dia, and what stood out to you?
Yeah, because we're all virtual in our design firm, which is a blessing for all of us, I think, because it's we can do what we need to do and travel and still keep things moving along for our clients. But I also do understand, coming from a brick and mortar background in visuals, the need to be in person and to collaborate with others and to have hands-on type of experience at work, no matter what industry you're in. But how do we do that now that we've all become very accustomed to being able to start a little laundry on my 10-minute break, or I didn't meal prep, but it's not a big deal because I can just make lunch because I have my kitchen. So it was very interesting to see them come out with these different pods that are quiet and insulated, so that you could have a little bit more of a break from just the loudness that comes with overstimulation from having that many people around you that we're just not used to. And then as an introvert myself, I appreciated those too, because I love being around people. That is not, in question, but it's sometimes I just need 10 minutes to review something, and my attention span, I just need quiet focus. So having that option that has really exploded in the industry, I think, is a really big deal that we'll see a lot more offices doing, whether you're an entry-level office and you just have 1 or 2 locations, or if you are a big corporation and you have them, worldwide. But having that option for as a teammate or as a group focus, I think was really impactful. And just the width of it too, right? We saw a bunch of different styles, so you could really make it work no matter what company you were.
Yeah, it was crazy. We saw lights that were put into the backs of these that were designed to imitate a night sky. We saw some that you could almost lay down in and would calibrate your senses and help sensitize, right? There were some designed for sensory issue kids that are struggling, especially because they've just grown up in a whole COVID world, and they show up to first grade and, oh boy, it's a lot noisier than they thought it was going to be. In fact, it was interesting. I'm thinking back on the one vendor that shared with us. He had heard of an employee who actually quit jobs and switched strictly because the office environment was too noisy for her, and they had no intent of toning it down in any way. And she's like, I just couldn't take how loud it was. I couldn't function in there, which is pretty interesting. It brings up the other component of this, which is all the felt panels we saw there. If you are looking for felt, I would highly recommend NeoCon. There was an overabundance of felt. You could get felt in every color, every texture, wood-looking felt panels. There was noise absorption at a level that, no pun intended, was off the charts. Like it was an insane amount of felt.
Well, and it was interesting too, like from like as like a visual, it's like because there were so many, you're totally right. Like, but out of so many, the two that really stick out to me are the ones who had a good display at NeoCon. Like they had like the pretty, like drop, almost like they created their own like drop ceiling in it, but that it was like all felt. And so they could really showcase what they're able to do. And then like the big woodland creatures, like they had their entire background. And it wasn't even anyone at their booth. Like there wasn't a human there, but I like took the info card because I was like, if you can make that large of a scale in felt, like when we're doing like, waiting rooms for like little kids, like I'm there for that. But it was like, it was just interesting as a business side, like there's that much felt, but I only like remember 2 of them.
Totally. 120%. Isn't that, yeah, felt was a big thing, but I think, really the whole alone together, however we get there, we need to be together, but we've also gotten used to a very reduced amount of noise. And we still want to meet in smaller groups, which these pods were allowing for, where you have 1 or 2 people. I think the max we saw, well, most of them were 4 at their max. And there was a couple that you could do a round table of like 8 or 12 people at, I want to say.
Yeah. But you couldn't do like the doors. So it was like more of like a half moon, like open.
It was, yeah. So it was a little different. The other thing too, that segues really nicely into this was that whole return to work tension that we saw manifested, and just, are we coming back to work? Are we not coming back to work? How many days are we coming back to work? How are we coming back to work? And just seeing just the general tension. In fact, we got to attend a lecture on that and listen to the tension of how are we designing spaces so that we are returning to work and people want to come back to work. But the how was the really big missing component to me. And that we're trying a bunch of different things, but I feel like it's still so new that nothing has actually stuck. Like we're going to have big conference rooms, but we're also going to have private pods, but we're also going to have, it just felt still very nebulous to me, I guess. Did it feel that way to you at all?
Yeah, because I feel like it was either you did the pods and you did the felt, or you did like the big giant conference tables and office chairs. Like there was no company that really showed like, how do you display this, or how do you set this up in your office to do both? Like there wasn't a showroom saying, this is how you can take this manufacturer and this manufacturer and this manufacturer and create a cohesive look that your teammates actually will use, and B, will enjoy to retain, talent and like people in the office. Like there wasn't that showroom, I don't feel like.
I don't either. It was interesting. One manufacturer, furniture manufacturer, was saying the big thing is versatility. And we sure saw a lot of that in all that office furniture, whether it was having a spine that ran through the entire office where you could pop in a desk or put in a chair or add a lamp, or because I don't think anyone really knows how this is going to all shake out when it's said and done. And so the whole idea is, hey, we're going to buy furniture, but we're going to do it in a way where if we end up going back to individual offices, we can. If we're going to keep everybody in a co-work space, we can. It was amazing the amount of vertebrae I feel like that we saw, as far as like having an electrical spine and then attaching people, workstations and whatever to it. I think we saw that in multiple manufacturers.
Yeah, a lot. Like it was configurable so you could move it around. And even with the pods, a lot of them are on casters. So you could move them around and have like the option, during some seasons, like during the Christmas season, if you're corporate, like you don't have a ton of people in the office, so you may not need that many like little pods taking up your main space. So you could like roll them around.
Totally. And one thing I was surprised by too, and was really keeping an eye out for, was the amount of ADA compliance there were in those pods. And don't get me wrong, there were a ton that were not ADA compliant, but there was also a surprising number that was, where you could still drop 1 or 2 in, be meeting ADA compliant standards. And they were still very accessible, very quiet, very effective still. And I think that hurdle, when the idea of the pod initially came to the market, that wasn't necessarily addressed. And I feel like now it's been adequately addressed, I would say.
Yeah. And it didn't feel like a design afterthought. It wasn't like, oh, we had to do this because we need it. But it was like, oh, no, we did this so that this can be used by everyone. And it wasn't just a like half done design, but it was very intentional and it looked great. And it was like, okay, this will actually be useful.
Totally. The third and final thing that I think we really saw a lot of was sustainable materials. Sustainable materials are making a huge push right now. I don't want to say comeback because it never went out of vogue, but the amount of sustainable materials we saw, I think, was pretty off the charts, right down to CEUs on sustainability, recyclability across the board, from office chairs to, I mean, we saw it in pretty much everything, I want to say.
Yeah. And even seeing a lot of the companies that were B Corps too, it was just like really encouraging that, you know, if you buy from that manufacturer, like the priorities of our firm are going to be like extended into the manufacturers that we choose. And I mean, it's a big deal. Like that stuff is not replaceable. And it was nice that it was top of mind.
I totally agree. And one thing about, I think that we're seeing in Gen Z and subsequent generations is we want sustainability. We want to find minority, women-owned businesses. We want to go track those down and have more of a we care attitude when we're making our purchases. And so to be given the option of finding those businesses there, I think was lovely. I mean, like you said, I'm looking in the window as I'm walking down the halls to see if they've got a B Corp representation to show that, which I think was really fun. Okay, lessons learned. Like, what do we think could have been done differently, or that would have helped us as walking into the show, as people attending the show, trying to figure out what's the best way to navigate NeoCon? Because it is numerous floors, it's hundreds of thousands of square feet, and it's a lot. I would say that it's a lot. Everyone bring your tennis shoes. I think we averaged 5 to 6 miles a day just in the building alone, which was pretty incredible. But yeah, I mean, what do you think could have been done differently that would have helped us more as attendees?
I feel like the biggest thing would have been like the like, I think it was the 11th floor where they had a lot of like the pop-up vendors. And so there was just a ton of people up there, and we found some really good resources up there. But if they had been organized a little bit better, as far as like, here are all the office chairs in 2 rows, here are some kid focused humans, like in these 2 like corridors, like that would have been helpful, because there's only so much time you have. And so we were on a very specific list of like, we want to find X, Y, and Z, but we were having to go through each floor almost to find that one. So I know some of those permanent showrooms that might be a little bit hard to achieve, but as far as like those pop-ups go, I feel like maybe we could have squished light categories together a little bit better.
Totally. Like, I know some of the problems we were going to solve were like commercial lighting, of course, outdoor furniture, artificial plants, and those were just kind of hodgepodge. There were some on 7th, there were some on 11th. It was just kind of bits and pieces together. And it would have been nice to say, hey, as a company, we know the problems we're wanting to solve, and we're going there to solve them. And these are the areas we're going to specifically hit. I think that would have been super duper helpful too. Of course, the elevators are always an event at NeoCon.
Yeah.
Word to the wise, start on the top floor and then take the stairs down. Gravity is your friend. Just accept and go to the top floor and work your way down for sure. I do feel like it metered out as far as timing of the show, like show tips that we would give people who haven't been to NeoCon, maybe for next year or subsequent years. I would say Monday is packed, Tuesday pretty packed, by Wednesday pretty quiet. Still some flowing around. I know I flew out Wednesday morning. You had more of Wednesday there. What would you say?
Yeah, Wednesday day was pretty quiet, and some of the vendors started to pack up, I think, a little earlier than like when the show like actually ended, which I don't blame them. But because I got there Monday like afternoon, I didn't have a full day Monday. So yeah. I feel like on Wednesday, even if they had a couple of more like teaching or like some of those like interactive things, I feel like they might have had a little bit more buy-in on that like full Wednesday, unless that wasn't their intent, right? Like if they were like, no, that's not not the point. But for me, because of my schedule, like I could not fly out on Sunday because, you know, other things are going on. It would have been nice to have more of a full day on Wednesday because I was already there. So yeah,
that's a great point.
If you're planning to go, I would fly in the day before, because depending on where you're coming from, but coming from, you know, Seattle, it was like an all day event traveling. So
it totally was. Yeah. I think flying in on Sunday, while it's not ever handy to give up the weekend, that was a great thing we learned, is like flying on Sunday, hit the ground running on Monday, and be prepared. Also constructive criticism, but also feedback and pro tip, be prepared to wait for your pass on Monday morning for up to 3 hours. So build that into your timeline, knowing that when you go downstairs to the main floor to get your pass, it can take 2 to 3 hours to even get your pass, but you have to have that pass to get on the elevator to get to the upper floors, because that's what those vendors are scanning, so they can follow up with you after the fact with your own personal QR code on there. So yeah, that I would definitely say just plan into how you want to allocate your time, because if you think you're just going to do the whole show on Monday, you're going to need lunch after getting your badge. And then you're going to be ready to go to floor 14 or whatever the top floor is for that year. What else are we missing that is a good conversation point, either pro tip, constructive criticism, or other things we just haven't touched on as part of the overview that was NeoCon 2023?
I feel like the two big things, besides what we just talked about, is even though the airport is only 15 miles away, it took us like an hour and 10 minutes to get there just because of traffic. Like, you just plan accordingly for that, because in my head I was like, cool, I'm gonna land on Monday at 1, I'll be to the show by 1:30. Like, I had it all like very romanticized in my head, and let me tell you, it did not go that well. So
I might have gotten a few texts from Di, I swear I'm coming, I'm stuck in traffic.
I promise I'm coming, I'm so sorry. As I'm like sitting really like nervously twitchy in my Uber. So just plan for the traffic part. Like, coming from Seattle, you think I would have had a better idea about that, but not in my head.
Not 1 o'clock on a Monday. Like no, traffic should be flowing by then. Yeah. Not in Chicago, folks. Yeah. Not in Chicago.
And to plan just a couple hours of margin of like, this is not on my list, because I feel like in those couple of hours that I did have, we were able to find vendors that we didn't go looking for, but because we had a little bit of margin, it was like, oh, well, we could take over that part of the business for our business, or, oh, I never thought about doing it in this way. But if it was all very scheduled out, I feel like we wouldn't have had the creative mental space to go, because it would have been too rushed. So like, even if it's like an hour or two of unscheduled time to wander, I found that helpful.
Yep. I totally agree with that. Margin is, and that's something that I think is going to come up in our conversations more as we go forward, but the power of margin, what margin allows for, whether it's mental margin or just a touch of margin, even in that time where you can stumble into the unexpected that can be filled with incredible possibilities. Margin is everything. I think when it comes to our personal lives, our professional lives, it's so important to have it. It's so hard to get, but when you do, it opens a world of possibilities. I think that's a great point, Di. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us for another insightful episode of Colorful Conversations with me, Katie, your host, and of course, Diana along today to give her insights on NeoCon. I hope you enjoyed our discussion today and found valuable insights to help you thrive in your design business and your life as we merge them here. To all of our listeners, thank you for joining us for the journey of personal learning and growth, and your enthusiasm and dedication to honing your business skills as a design professional continue to inspire me to keep bringing you valuable content. Remember to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We would love to have you. If you have any questions or topics that you really want addressed, please make sure and let us know. If you would like one-on-one time with me, I would love to discuss your firm, plans for intentional steps, for your growth, for your success. You can book a call with me on our website at www.colorworks.coach. Until then, keep dreaming, keep designing, and mastering the art of running a successful interior design business that scales to your life. This is Katie Erickson signing off. Bye for now. We'll see you next time.